It seemed like everybody else had a manual, and I did not have that manual. Why is everybody always asking about your favorite color? Like, I'm pretty sure the last 20 people who got divorced did not none of them got divorced because their favorite colors did not align. In the past, I used to mask about a lot of things. One of the ways in which I masked was to date, make it appear as though I was trying to have relationships. I wasn't actually trying. I did not know that what I was doing was masking. But I used to go on dates with people because I knew that if I did not, people around me were going to ask questions and they were going to wonder why I wasn't talking to anyone, why I wasn't seeing anyone, why I seemed to just keep saying no to everyone who approached me. And they were going to ask me questions like that I did not have answers to. I wasn't confident enough to say in truth. And the truth was, I was really not interested in going on dates. I wasn't interested in dating, and I wasn't really interested in the people I was going on dates with. Saying that out loud, it seems mean and it seems deceitful, especially if I was going on dates with people who did not know that I wasn't really interested in them. But nearly everyone seems to be acting deceitful towards one another. And that's one of the things that bothers me about dating. I used to think dating meant courtship. In my head, courtship equaled dating, dating equaled courtship. And what I understood and still understand by courtship is that you talk, two people who are interested in each other decide to spend time together, to have lots of discussions, get to know each other, to know each other's likes, dislikes, future goals, personality traits, what they see for their futures, and see if their goals and their paths and personality types align well enough to help them build a relationship that would suit them. And then if things seem to align well enough, they would then commit to each other to get married and have a family based on their specifications, or in most cases based on societal expectations. That's what courtship is to me. So there's supposed to be a step one, step two, like that. Step one is being interested in each other and letting each other know that, and then step two is spending time together and talking and getting to know each other with that goal in mind. And then the step three would be committing to each other and getting married. And then step four would be starting a family. It's supposed to be like that in my head. It was always supposed to be like that. So when I started dating, bear in mind the fact that even the dating wasn't really dating as such, because I always felt in my somewhere in the back of my mind that I wasn't ready. There was always something about me, something inside me that felt very put off by the idea of going into a relationship at that point in time. And when I started, I was about 17, and I was put off by the idea of dating because I knew deep down that I just was not ready. But again, I had to, because I did not want people to ask questions, and people were asking questions. I was in that space where I knew I wasn't ready for it, and I knew I wasn't really open minded about it, and I wasn't really giving these men a full chance. However, I was willing to be convinced. It was such that if I did, in fact, meet somebody with whom my lifestyle aligns and all the other stuff aligns, then maybe I would then be able to get ready. Maybe that part in my head would feel like it's ready. That never happened, by the way. But also at this time, I started to realize certain things, and I started realizing that there was always a lot of miscommunication. I always felt very uncomfortable when interacting with these people. Not necessarily always because of something they did. Regardless of what they did or how they acted, I always felt deeply uncomfortable whenever I was interacting with a guy under the label of a date. Otherwise, I had guy friends. I was more comfortable spending time with guys as friends. I preferred spending time with guys anyway because I just understand them better. Their interests seem to align with my interests. I don't know. I mean, I have female friends. I've always had female friends, but I feel like I relate better to guys because I don't have to force myself to talk about shoes and bags and what dress do you want to wear to, like, I don't, why should we have that conversation? But I realized that there seemed to be something missing. Like, it seemed like everybody else had a manual, and I did not have that manual. And so I was constantly getting irritated, constantly getting frustrated, and constantly forcing myself to ignore my discomfort. But at the same time, it felt like they were all also constantly getting irritated with me for some reason. Like they had certain expectations that I wasn't willing to fulfill. For instance, when you're trying to make eye contact and I cannot make eye contact with you, now I understand that it would seem to the other person like you're trying to avoid intimacy by avoiding eye contact. But that's first of all at the time I did not know that. Otherwise I would have tried to make prolonged eye contact. Not how painful it was to me. Second of all, that was not it did not even mean that to me at all. And so they would think I was trying to they probably thought I was trying to avoid intimacy. I just thought they were being weird when they tried to make eye contact for a long period of time. And again, I thought they were trying to be manipulative towards me, trying to probably make it appear to me like they were super into me because they wanted access to me in a way that I wasn't willing to give them access. Because even before I got to that age, I was already aware of the fact that, you know, people in general, they will take what they can get without having to give in return. That's just the way human beings are. If you can get, most times, especially people who are unscrupulous, if you can get without having to give, most people will take what they can get without giving in return and they'll move on. That's just the way it is. Whether it's good or it's bad, obviously it's bad, but that's just the way human beings are. And so I always have had that at the back of my mind. And I think that just having that awareness also added to the defenses that I'd already built in my mind against entering a relationship at that point. But another thing is seemed like they weren't willing to have conversations with the end in mind. Like I would want to have I would expect that we should talk about ourselves, we should talk about our future wants, we should talk about kinds of families we want. I mean, I wouldn't initiate conversations like that because again, I wasn't really, really, really like interested in that. But I would expect that that was what they were supposed to talk about. But no, they just wanted to talk about trivial things like how was your day? Have you eaten? Like, why is everybody always asking if you've eaten? Is that all there is to, like, why are you asking about my favorite color? I don't have a favorite color, by the way. I don't have a favorite food. But why is everybody always asking about your favorite color? Like, I'm pretty sure the last 20 people who got divorced did not get, none of them got divorced because their favorite colors did not align. Like, I'm pretty sure. So, like, why are we having all these conversations that seem to be inconsequential? And it used to drive me crazy. But again, I would not be able to say it out because I wasn't confident enough to express myself in that way. And then the sensual aspect and the fact that almost all of them seem to expect some sort of physical contact, like physical intimacy, without going into details. And it was strange to me because again, I know that in some other cultures that's a normal thing these days. Like in the past, it did not used to be a normal thing, but now it's a normal thing. I get that, but in our culture, that's not a normal thing. Like you're supposed to get married first before having and or expecting physical intimacy. And I know that there are some people who have physical intimacy outside of marriage. I get that, but it's not supposed to be something that you demand as a matter of right, if that makes sense. The only time you demand that as a matter of right is if you're paying for it. It just seemed really weird to me because then you'd be sitting down having just what you think, well, trying to struggle your way through another mundane conversation about whether you've eaten, whether what your favorite food is, and then why haven't you eaten, or you're struggling to just go through that and not yawn, and then all of a sudden somebody's in your personal space and trying to stare into your eyes in a very weird manner, trying to touch you inappropriately. Another part of your brain is going like, what's going on here? And so I found dating really difficult because of all these things. It felt like every single aspect of dating contravened or went against my idea of dating being like courtship. And at the same time, it felt like every single aspect of dating crossed my boundaries in so many ways and it triggered me in so many ways. And yet I could not I wasn't in a space where I was confident enough or collected enough to be able to establish my boundaries and make clear things that made me uncomfortable, just in a clear manner, just so that they would know I could not do that. And so I kept gritting my teeth through it all. Yet I could not stop because I did not want people to ask questions. And I remember there was a time when I actually stopped going on dates and everything. Like I was just tired. And my friends, my roommates, and everybody were already asking, like, I'm saying, you've not been going on dates recently. Like, what's going on? Right? Like, there's always that. There's always that. And so, because you want to answer questions, you resume again. And it has always been so difficult for me dating. Now I understand, a few years down the line, and I've not gone on any dates for a couple of years, but I have certainly thought about it, and I've realized that dating is not courtship. Courtship means one thing. Dating in today's lingo means something completely different from what I understand, from what I used to understand as dating, and it is not the same thing as courtship. In today's lingo, dating simply means two people spending time together with or without the end goal in mind, and a lot for a lot of people anything goes. And I will say this, even though I know it might be controversial and a lot of people might not like hearing that, or a lot of people might feel called out if they hear this, but I will say this because this is my space. Dating to me in today's world, for in a lot of cases, seems to me like what you would regard as service for payment. Okay, I'm not calling anyone a whole or anything like that, but it seems that way to me. Like it seems like service for payment. Like people are spending money on the other person, and that other person who is receiving money and receiving material stuff is expected and knows that they are expected to give physical intimacy in return. And in many cases, even bear the other party a child and all of that, and everybody is fine with their roles. I mean, if it works for you, that's good, but it's just one of those things that is confusing to me because it's one of those rules that I wasn't told about. I had already established a rule set in my head, and so when I entered the field, I saw that the rules were completely different, and it was very confusing to me. And I wasn't even given the space or the. I felt like because I always had the power, I just did not know I had the power, but I felt like I wasn't given chance, any space, any time to even step back and think about whether or not I was comfortable with the way the game was being played, because I had never really thought about the game being played with those new rules. When I had my chronic burnout, when I had that emotional breakdown, one of the steps that I took, and I mentioned this in my chronic burnout story video, one of the huge steps I took was to tell myself I was never ever ever going on a date again until A, I felt like I was ready for it. B, I met someone that made me feel like I want to date them. Someone that I would meet, and maybe that person would inspire that feeling, that urge to actually date them or court them, I should say. Then that's when I'm going to go on a date with them. And see, I want to be in a space where I'm open to it completely and open-minded to it, and I don't have all those barriers around my head and my heart and all of that. Those were the things I told myself. And from that very day, about 8 years or 9 years ago till now, I have not gone on a single date. There have been people who have asked. I have felt attraction to a lot of people. I've liked a lot of people, but nobody has ever made me feel like I want to be in that kind of a romantic relationship with them, or even want to get to know them, because most times from afar, even though I would like them or find them attractive or find them really cool or sweet or whatever, just by knowing them, I would see one or two things that would tell me it's definitely not going to work out with this person, so let's not even bother. And I know that is, for a lot of people, it wouldn't make any sense to them, because they would look at the things that they like about that person and then go on dates with that person and then figure, oh, whatever it is, we can make it work. That's not the way my mind works. My mind looks for certain patterns, and because I know there's a goal at the end, I'm looking for things that won't make that goal work out, and I'm trying to just save myself and that other person all the trouble from the very beginning. At the same time, I have gotten to a point in my life about 2 or so years ago. I reached that point in my life where I felt okay. I feel like I am not as emotionally triggered, negatively triggered by the idea of me being in a relationship the way I used to be in the past. I no longer break out in a sweat when I think of myself as being in a romantic relationship or being married or being in a committed relationship. So maybe I am in a place where I feel like I'm in a place where I'm more open to it, where I'm okay with it, right? And so I feel like I can actually maybe talk to people and go on dates and all of that. When I felt that, I actually, became more open minded to it. It's just that it doesn't seem like it's worth the trouble, to be honest, especially when I think of the fact that relationships are really a responsibility, and going into a committed relationship like marriage is a huge responsibility. Bringing children into the world, responsibility of being in a marriage and to deal with other people's needs. You have to consider yourself before you make any move, and also consider another person. Sorry guys, my neighbors are have toddlers that like shouting, so if you're hearing any background noise, please ignore it. Before you can make any decision for your life, you have to consider not only what you want and the direction you think you would like your life to go in, or also someone else in making decisions for your life. It just seems like a lot of stress, and then you not only have to contend with your own bad habits that you would like to change but have not been able to change, but you also have to contend with someone else's bad habits that they may or may not be willing to change, and they may or may not even be aware of, and that triggers you, drives you nuts. You have to deal with your own baggage and trauma that you're dealing with, and you also have to deal with someone else's baggage and trauma that they may or may not be aware of, and they may or may not be dealing with. The person you decide to bring into your life in that way is just going to have a huge impact on how your life, the direction in which your life goes, and how your life will turn out. And I just see a lot of people who end up with regrets because of the person they decided to hitch themselves to their entire lives. And even though the society celebrates long relationships and long marriages, and talk about they've been married for 50 years, they've been married for 60 years, but those people, many of those people actually also were in dysfunctional relationships for a very long time. Those relationships were dysfunctional. Those relationships made them unhappy, made them sick many times, made them, just feel unfulfilled. And sometimes it wasn't even the fault of the relationship or the fault of their partner. It's just that they did not allow themselves to go for what they wanted, and they used their partner and their relationship as an excuse. In the past, when I used to feel anxious about me being in a relationship or being married, it wasn't because I was thinking about the negatives. I don't know why. I just used to have that very horrible revulsion whenever I would think about myself being in a marriage. So it wasn't because I was thinking about all these things. But now, even though I no longer have those feelings, I am thinking about it more realistically, because I feel like I'm in a place where I'm open to it. And that's why I'm actually thinking about all these things, right? And the kind of relationship I would like if I were to have one, and whether or not it's something that I am desperate for, whether or not it's something that I would go to any lengths to, or whether or not something I can actually live without. I've never really been in a relationship as such. I've never been able to say to myself that I am in a relationship, other than just all datings I've done, like in the past, do not count as relationships. They were just talking to the same person for maybe 3 months, 2 months, 1 month, a few weeks, a few days. That's it. And I'm fine with it, and I am still fine with it. 2 years ago, when I came to the realization that it would be something nice for me to have, and that I feel like I am open to it, I actually did try to meet people. I went on online dating sites, I tried to talk to people, but there was always something. There were some nice people, I won't lie about that. There were some really nice, like really mature men. And I know that people are always talking about, oh, men are cooked, this and that. Yes, from my experience, many of them were narcissists or narcissistic. And I'm grateful that I had gotten to a point where I had, grown in myself, or had undergone this personal growth. So I was able to detect them. People that don't know how to talk to people that don't know how to be courteous, people that seem to lack manners, people that do not care about respecting any boundaries that you set right from the onset. And then there were just the creeps out there. They were just the creeps that wanted to know your bra size. There were those ones. But then there were also the really nice ones that, checked all the boxes. They were, you know, just they had just this really attractive personality. They were very fine with respecting boundaries, even though I set up many of those so-called boundaries as a test. It wasn't anything serious, but I wanted to be able to discern the right from the good. Maybe I'll talk about this in a future video. The precautions one can take, precautions I've taken as a neurodivergent person when you're dating to help you discern the crooked ones from the real ones earlier on, and to save yourself headache and just stress. There were those nice ones, but there was also a matter of personality types and just alignment in personal values and our approaches to seeing the world, our personal goals, etc., etc. There was also that. But then after that whole episode, I sat down again with myself after a bunch of about 6 months or so. I don't think it was up to 6 months. I think it was more like maybe 3 4 months. After that whole, I sat down myself again and I realized I was already exhausted. I was already exhausted, and it just seemed to me like this stress. It wasn't worth the stress. I know that there is some pleasure in having relationships, but honestly, and I know that you don't have to agree with me. This is my personal opinion, but it is just not worth the stress, at least for now. Again, I am open to it. I'm not entirely put off by the idea, but it just doesn't seem like it's worth the stress, to be honest. And that's just where I am right now with the idea of relationships and dating and all of that. Again, this is just my personal opinions. Everything I've said in here are my personal opinions. I'm not casting judgment on anyone or anyone culture. I'm not calling out anyone in particular. If you feel called out, I don't know you, probably. And even if I know you and you know me, I don't know that you're the one watching, so it's almost the same as I don't know you. This is just me. This is my safe space, and that's why I'm openly talking about all the things here that I usually am unable to say to people in my personal life, because I know that they probably would not understand, or they would think I'm crazy and all of that. I remember when I told one of my friends when I had my burnout. Obviously, she did not know that I was experiencing a burnout. I did not know I was experiencing a burnout, but when I told her I had decided to stop dating, and she was like, okay, so when are you going to start dating again? I was like, I do not know. She was like, you're crazy. Like, that was literally what she said to me. And I know I'm not the only person who gets reactions like that when we express certain decisions that we made for our lives. I know there are some people who will decide that they will never get married. And people will tell them they're crazy. People will tell them, they don't know what they're doing. People will tell them they've been bewitched. Somebody has done black juju to them. Some people will decide they don't want children, and they'll tell them, they're crazy, they've been bewitched, their brains have been colonized by the colonizers, all sorts of things, all sorts of things. But this is my personal space, this is my safe space, and I mean, I'm looking at this my channel as a public journal type of thing, because I have my private journals, and I know I've never mentioned this on this channel, but keeping journals has been one of those things that have really helped save my life and my mental health. So I'm just keeping this as a kind of public journal where I speak instead of write, and where I share my thoughts with anyone who is lucky or unlucky to come across the videos and decides, fortunately or unfortunately, to sit down and actually watch the videos from the beginning to the end. And if you're one of those people, then I hope it is fortunate for you, and I hope it is advantageous to you, because I hope you learn one or two things. I hope maybe there'll be something I've said about my personal experiences or my thoughts that may validate your own experiences or your thoughts, and you realize that you're not alone. Anyway, thank you so much for watching this video till the very end. If you're still here, if you have not subscribed, I am begging you to please just subscribe and support me, and or not, but it would be nicer if you did. Anyway, thank you once more, and I will see you next time. Ciao.